What is up, guys? Swish84 here, and today we're going to be doing a video on the features and overall user experience of Spotify and Apple Music. But before we get into all of that, I want to briefly touch on how we've evolved into a digital streaming landscape as our primary method for daily music consumption. I think most of us are familiar with the advent of MP3 and file sharing and how the Napster fiasco kind of set the stage for the direction of digital music and new ways of listening. Regardless of how people may feel about the ethics or legalities of what Napster did, I think there's no denying that it certainly had a huge impact on the direction of music. There were, of course, various copycat sites out there in the wake of Napster, services like Morpheus, Kazaa, LimeWire, and Aries. These Napster clones basically are what led us to the shift towards torrenting on websites like Demonoid, Kickass Torrents, Pirate Bay, and uTorrent, which leads to how the music industry, who has consistently been battling these forms of illegal downloading in order to protect artists and their own bottom line, have responded by endorsing monetized services like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Play, just to name a few. The great thing about streaming is that it doesn't require downloading each individual file in order to play from your device, but rather uses Wi-Fi and cellular data to stream directly using their respective platform. This can provide a much better user experience depending on one's own access to the internet. I know I personally download several of my Spotify playlists to my devices for offline use for when I know I may not have solid internet connection, like when I'm up in the mountains or something. Both Spotify and Apple Music possess this feature, and I highly recommend using it as a way to conserve data as well. When thinking about user experience, I do like the search results on Spotify slightly more than on Apple Music. I just feel like the list is more refined and intuitive. It's categorized here by song, artist, and then you can scroll down to podcast, albums, and then related playlists. Whereas Apple's search results, I feel, tend to be less intuitive. They tend to be a little bit more confusing, actually. If you notice here, when I'm typing in something, you can kind of see I'm typing in trying to find a band that I like, The Neighborhood, and there's so much. I mean, it gets almost kind of overwhelming here in the search results. And then once I'm able to bring up the neighborhood and artists, it's just not as intuitive. I mean, this is essentially what I'm looking at here. I have to then click on the neighborhood, and then I'm taken to a page which is then categorized similarly to Spotify. And that's just something, I don't know, I feel like that little extra step and then those confusing search results makes for a less intuitive user experience. One really cool feature that I do love about Apple Music, unlike Spotify, which doesn't have this, top videos and video playlists are actually a thing. So when you go ahead and search for a band that you like, not only are you going to get albums and playlists that are related, you're also going to get some of their top music videos. And I don't know, I feel like that's a really cool feature to have. Not necessarily a deal breaker for anyone, but people that are interested in streaming music videos or watching the latest music videos instead of having to pop into another app like YouTube, I think it's really cool. Another great part about Apple Music having those video features is the fact that you can go to like your favorite podcasts and not only listen to the podcast itself, which will shuffle music in between the interviews, but you can actually go down to featured videos and it will actually pull up the video for the podcast interview. And I think that this is a really great feature in terms of user experience. I personally love to be able to see the people who are talking. Obviously having the playlist or podcast playing in the car, that's great. But if you're at home hanging out or you just want to go ahead and check it out, like on your lunch break at work, it's something that you can set up your iPad, you can set up your iPhone and just sit there and listen to some of your favorite artists have really great conversations. Another great feature that both of these services are able to provide is the lyrics for the songs that you're listening to. I do feel like in this department, Apple Music does have the slight advantage where you can actually pull up the lyrics for pretty much any song that you could think of that you're listening to that's on the service, whereas Spotify is going to limit you a little bit more, and I think that's largely because they don't handle the lyrics within their first-party development. That's a partnership with Genius Music. Another great win for Apple, I think, in terms of features is the fact that I feel as though their radio stations tend to be a little bit better and kind of have the edge. One popular station, of course, is the Beats One radio station, which is, a pretty diverse mix of popular music with some great throwbacks here and there. Also on the Beats One playlist, you're going to have really cool podcasts that are hosted by different artists, interviewing different artists, and I feel like that's a really awesome feature that Apple Music has done very well. While both of these applications have a good amount of genres and moods to choose from in terms of your playlist selection, I do feel as though Spotify has a slight edge here. It just has a slightly better selection of hand-curated playlists as well as algorithmic playlists, which work off of your existing library and listening habits. One thing that I really like about this is the Discover Weekly playlists, which are updated every Monday and are pretty much guaranteed to provide you with new music that is going to show you new artists that you're almost guaranteed to like because they're based off of your listening habits, your existing library. And I just feel like this is something that Spotify does really well in terms of its features. Being able to listen to new artists without having to necessarily take the time to go through and handpick them yourselves. I feel like this is a big win for them in that category. One thing to definitely consider when choosing one of these services is the voice assistant and device pairing. Spotify tends to be more of a cross-platform service, whereas unlike Apple, they tend to be very compatible with most Bluetooth devices. I mean, you can see on here I have, several of my Amazon Echo devices as well as my MacBook. And it's picking up in the building that I'm in, it's also picking up on other Bluetooth devices that I could potentially pair to. Whereas Apple Music, unfortunately, is going to be primarily a closed environment, much like the rest of the Apple ecosystem. Now, this is not necessarily a deal breaker if you already work within the Apple ecosystem. This is just something that, you might want to consider when you're choosing which service might be better for you. Now, one thing that I really wanted to focus a lot on in this video is the overall social features. And I do feel very strongly that while both services have these features integrated within them, Spotify tends to take the edge overall because it has the collaborative playlist feature, which I think is one of the greatest features that I've seen in pretty much any streaming service. And it's very simple, actually. I mean, all you have to do is go to a playlist that you made, and you can go ahead and make it secret, make it collaborative, and anybody can, who's following you can jump in and start adding songs to it. I do this with some of my friends who, want to introduce me to new artists and get me to check out new songs. And I think that this feature really brings that social element because, you can introduce each other to new types of music. You can, which of course is going to start a dialogue with your friends regarding what you're listening to currently. And I just feel like that's a really awesome feature that Spotify does really well. Another feature that I feel pushes Spotify past Apple Music in terms of its social features is the friend activity, which is just a really cool little feature, being able to see who's online, how long ago they were listening to these songs. A lot of times I'm just curious to see, let's say like what my friend Maria is listening to, and if it's something that her and I discussed, I can just go ahead and click right on it and pop over to that artist page and start listening to what she's listening to. I think that that's in terms of not only interface and the way that they integrate that, on the screen. I think that it's a really intuitive way to integrate social features within a music streaming service. Another really great thing that Spotify does in terms of its social features is allowing you to very easily navigate to your homepage and go to Find Friends. This is a really awesome, very simple and intuitive way to start following people. You can just click the little plus sign next to their name. And a lot of these are pulled up using the Facebook integration feature, which both services do have. But again, in terms of social features, I think that it's important to note that, following somebody on Spotify is one thing, or on Apple Music is one thing, but then actually being able to collaborate, make those playlists, check out what they're listening to, all in a very easy, intuitive way. So in conclusion, I feel as though Spotify ultimately takes the win here as the superior digital music streaming service. With all things considered, I just feel as though it has an edge on Apple Music, mostly due to its really great social feature integration and playlist selections. It was definitely a close call, as Apple Music does have some really fantastic qualities as well. But I think most importantly, Spotify is a better all-around application for use on a broad range of devices, and having that added dimension of compatibility with voice assistants and Bluetooth-enabled devices certainly doesn't hurt. So that pretty much wraps it up for us today, guys. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For which service you think is superior, as I would love to get your input. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.